Today is the first of 4 days of celebrations marking the historic Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II.
Tens of thousands converged on central London to witness the centuries-old Trooping the Colour military parade. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I'm CJ Hirro.
And I am Ricci, Alagao, Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Once housing the legislative building, President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. a National Museum as the venue for his oath-taking on June the 30th. The Philippines' outstanding debt reaches 12.76 trillion pesos as of April. A week after the Uvalde school shooting, another mass shooting kills 4 at a Tulsa hospital in Oklahoma. Hurricane Agatha unleashes its wrath on Mexico, leaving 11 dead and about 30 more missing. And both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard found liable for defamation. Jury sides more strongly with the Pirates of the Caribbean star. Once housing the legislative building, the National Museum is set to be the venue of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s inauguration on June the 30th. Eden Santos will tell us more.
President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will take his oath at the historic National Museum of the Philippines in Manila. Marcos Jr., who recently won the presidential race with more than 31 million votes, will take his oath as the 17th President of the Philippines at noon on June 30. In a statement, Presidential Management Staff Secretary-designate Zenaida Angping said the inaugural committee members had recently conducted an ocular inspection of the area. She said the preparations were already in full swing to ensure the venue would be ready before June 30. The National Museum building, formerly known as the Old Legislative Building, has served as the venue for the inauguration of former Presidents Manuel L. Quezon in 1935, Jose P. Laurel in 1943, and Manuel Rojas in 1946. The inaugural committee considered the Quirino Grandstand an option, but Angping said there were several COVID-19 field hospitals set up in the area. Over the weekend, news reports said the Marcos camp was considering 3 venues for his June 30th inauguration: Quirino Grandstand, Fort Santiago, and the National Museum. Quirino Grandstand holds special significance as it was where the president-elect's father, former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., had his inauguration as the country's 10th president in 1965. Marcos was proclaimed the new president after Congress, sitting as the National Board of Canvassers, declared him the winner on May 25. His running mate, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, was also proclaimed the country's next vice president. This is Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Malacanang said the one-on-one meeting between President Rodrigo Duterte and the President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has yet to be scheduled. Cabinet Secretary Melvin Matibag says the two leaders will surely meet prior to the inauguration rites on June 30. He says President Duterte wants to ensure a smooth transition of executive power. The Presidential Transition Committee, headed by Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdeas, has already prepared all the documents on governance that will be turned over to the incoming Marcos administration.
Today marks the 46th founding anniversary of the diplomatic ties between the Philippines and Russia. Russia says it will continue to partner with the Philippines under the new administration of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Madeline Villar-Moratillo has the story.
The strong bilateral ties between the Philippines and Russia will continue as the Philippines gears up to welcome its new president. Russian ambassador to the Philippines, Marat Pavlov, made the assurance.
In any way, we understand that the Philippine government, with its very balanced and very wise policy, is and will be our friend and our good partner in many fields of our cooperation.
Ambassador Pavlov said Russia will fulfill all its promises to the Philippines under the Marcos administration. The Russian envoy added that President Vladimir Putin has personally conveyed this message to President-elect Marcos Jr. when he extended his congratulatory message to him.
Sent his congratulatory messages to President-elect Ferdinand Marcos, and he said that Russia is ready to enlarge our cooperation in different fields. Education, culture, economic, also defense.
Ambassador Pavlov attended a poetry reading event in Manila to commemorate the 233rd anniversary of Russian national poet Alexander Pushkin. The event was organized by Filipinos who formerly studied in Russia. This is Madeline Villar-Moratillo reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
As of April, the Philippine government's total outstanding debt has ballooned to 12.76 trillion pesos, up by 0.7% from the previous month. Randy Bernardino reports.
The national government's outstanding debt reached 12.76 trillion pesos as of the end of April. The Bureau of Treasury said the amount was 0.7% or 83.40 billion pesos higher than the previous month, due to the net issuance of government securities to both local and external lenders. The BTR said in its statement that another reason was the depreciation of the local currency against the US dollar. Out of the total debt stock, 30% was sourced externally, while 70% were domestic borrowings. BTR said the country's debt to GDP ratio hit 63.5% in March, which is higher than the global standard of 60%. But according to the Department of Budget and Management, there was no reason to fear debt because it was incurred with a clear purpose. The country's economic managers have also ensured that the debts are reasonable and that the Philippines has the capacity to pay for them in the future. The Philippines borrowed heavily during the pandemic to fund isolation facilities, hospital beds, cash assistance, and other COVID-19 programs that were not part of the spending plan. This is Randy Bernardino for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Senators vowed to allocate more funding to support the agricultural sector. Let's find out why with this report from Weng de la Fuente.
The senators of the 19th Congress have vowed to prioritize the agriculture sector when they tackle next year's proposed national budget. Senator-elect Francis Escudero said the government should allot a big portion of the national budget to the agriculture sector, especially now that there's a looming food crisis. He said that instead of focusing on government importation, the local farmers need support in strengthening their production.
Gastusan natin ang sektor na agrikultura. Ika nga, put your money where your mouth is. Kung hindi natin gagastusan ang agrikultura, kailanman hindi natin na mapapataas ang produksyon ng pagkain mismo na ginagawa ng ating mga magsasaka at mangingisda.
As for his part, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian insisted that the government should already be preparing since the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is far from over. Gatchalian suggested that a law should be passed to give subsidies to the farmers and strengthen their production. He called the importation by the Department of Agriculture a band-aid solution and not a long-term program which the government should be making.
Yung dapat nating tutukan dito ay yung una-una local production. Ang unang tanong, bakit nag-shortage ang local production natin? Meron ditong siguro kinalaman, nakikita ko ay suporta, no, sa mga local farmers natin, subsidiya, baka kulang rin. So importante na tanungin muna natin kung bakit kulang yung local production natin. And then, ang importation kasi, last resort na yan eh. No? Wag natin palaging gamitin yan solusyon para magkaroon tayo ng food security. So, ang importante ngayon, palakasin muna natin yung lokal na production natin.
Meanwhile, Senator-elect Raffy Tulfo said he will look into reviewing the rice tariffication law. After the passage of the law, he said rice importation had become easy, affecting the livelihood of local farmers.
Dahil sa pandemic, siguro bigyan ng loan, bigyan ng training para lalo lumakas pa, para dumami pang employment. Kailangan tututukan natin. Ang nangyayari kasi, palagi tayong umaasa sa import, especially ng rice tariffication. Siguro panahon na para reviewin yan. Tingnan kung talagang kailangan pa ba yung rice tariffication yan. Sa halip, dapat tulungan natin mga farmers, bigyan siguro ng maraming kagamitan, fertilizer, mahal, yung insecticide, mahal yan. Kulang siguro din sa mga kagamitan. So, yun dapat, research and development, nang sa gayon, yung ating mga farmers magkaroon ng more production.
This is Weng de la Fuente reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
After 6 months in detention, Pharmacy Pharmaceutical Corporation officials have been released from the Pasay City Jail. Moira Encina reports.
The two executives of Pharmacy Pharmaceuticals have been released from detention at the Pasay City Jail. The two were already detained by the Senate Buribon Committee, who cited them for contempt because of their refusal to cooperate in the Senate investigation. Pharmacy was the subject of congressional hearings. Lawmakers questioned their 8.5 billion peso contracts with the government for medical supplies at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, despite having only 625,000 pesos in capital. Lincoln Ong and Mohit Dargani left Pasay City Jail past 9 o'clock in the morning, accompanied by their lawyer, Ferdinand, after Senate President Tito Soto signed the release order Wednesday night. Ong had been under Senate custody since September after he was cited in contempt for being evasive and lying under oath, while Dargani was arrested in November as he returned to the country via charter plane at the Davao City International Airport. This is Moira Encina reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A suspect for the bus bombing in Tacurong and Coronadal, South Cotabato was killed, and another one was arrested in an encounter with officers of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. Lieutenant Colonel Romel Mundala, commanding officer of the 90th Infantry Battalion, said the encounter lasted 30 minutes Wednesday at Puro 7, Barangay Dunguan, Malang, Cotabato or North Cotabato. The deceased suspect was identified as Monir Lintukan, while the one arrested was identified as Randy Saro, alias Bobong. The two are members of Daula Islamia Maguindanao Group, headed by Almoben Kamin Sebod, alias Polok. Colonel Jovencio Gonzalez said that Omal Kamsa of the Beef Carialan faction was also part of the group. Authorities said they believe the group was behind the bombing in Parang, Maguindanao and Malang in Aliosan in North Cotabato, as well as the twin explosion in Coronadal and Tacurong cities last week. Brigadier General Eduardo Gubat, acting commander of the 6th Infantry Division, said there's no let-up in their efforts to manhunt the terrorists behind the bombing incidents.
The Philippine Department of Transportation instructs transport operators to tighten security after several explosions rocked Mindanao. Meanwhile, the department asks for the patience of all passengers who will be affected by security restrictions. Erlo Bringas for the details.
After recording a series of explosions in Mindanao, the Department of Transportation has issued an advisory to the entire transportation sector. Based on the SED's advisory, the personnel of bus operators, railway system operators, bus terminals, and tollway operators should double the security and be more vigilant. The OTR also asked for the patience of passengers who will be affected by the tighter safety protocol, which instructs transport operators to do the following: inspecting and controlling prohibited items that can be carried on the bus, strict screening of passengers and their baggage before boarding, picking up and dropping off passengers at the right places, deployment of security personnel, K9 units, and use of security equipment, immediate reporting of suspicious passengers, sharing intel information with local and foreign counterparts, improving security plan provisions related to guidelines and procedures to prevent any attacks on buses, conducting drills and exercises in accordance with the security plan, taking appropriate actions in accordance with respective security or contingency plans. In line with this, NCRPO Regional Director Major General Felipe Natividad says they will implement stricter security measures, including the deployment of more police in popular areas throughout Metro Manila. Meanwhile, the PNP has also formed a special investigation task group to investigate the twin bombings in Mindanao, including the explosion of a bus in Coronadal, South Cotabato, and a bus terminal in Tacurong, Sultan Kudarat. This is Erdo Bringas reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, Colombian mayor hopes people can be found alive after an explosion traps 14 miners underground. 2 earthquakes kill 4 people and damage houses in southwest China. And in a new U.S. mass shooting, gunman kills 4 at Tulsa Hospital. Mata ng Agila International will return with more stories. Please don't go away.
We are open for business, giving MSMEs the latest market trends and business opportunities. Open for business, only on Net 25.
Bank of Commerce, an affiliate of San Miguel Corporation.
The COVID-19 crisis is still present, but fortunately, the pandemic is becoming more manageable. Sa simula ng 2022, ilang mga bansa na ang nagluwag ng kanilang border restrictions at nagbukas ng kanilang pinto sa foreign tourists. In this episode, we will find out how one country strives to revive its tourism industry by allowing all travelers to see firsthand its stunning landscapes and bring home pleasant memories from their trips. Mr. Sami Yaya, Israel Ministry of Tourism Director for the Philippines and India, will discuss the attraction of agri-tourism.
Israel is unique because Israel is ancient land, and this land connects Europe, Africa, and Asia. So they have the diversity of food, culture, music, the heritage of the history. And for the Filipinos, because he will have the activity, he will feel, he will touch, and he will test, and he can't find it in other places in the world.
All these in this episode of Open for Business.
A week after the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, another gunman attacked a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 4 were reportedly killed in the new U.S. mass shooting. The suspect was also killed in that attack. Here's Randy Bernardino for the story.
A gunman killed at least 4 people Wednesday at the St. Francis Health System Hospital campus in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Police said the latest mass shooting to convulse America comes as Texas families bury their dead after a school massacre barely 1 week ago. The suspect, who was armed with a rifle and a handgun, was also killed in the attack.
The officers that did arrive were hearing shots in the building, and that's what directed them to the second floor. Right now, we have 4 civilians that are dead. We have 1 shooter that is dead, and right now we believe that is self-inflicted. Officers have not been interviewed, but we're certain that's a self-inflicted gunshot wound on his part. We believe we're getting close on the identity of the suspect. He is a black male, estimated to be 35 to 40 years old, and we have confirmed he had 1 long gun, a rifle, and 1 handgun on the scene at the time.
Earlier, Tulsa Police Captain Richard Muhlenberg said officers had described the scene as catastrophic, with several people shot and multiple injuries. It was not clear how many other people might have been injured. Eric Dalgish, Deputy Chief of Tulsa Police Department, said the entire assault, from the moment emergency calls came in to the time officers engaged the shooter, lasted about 4 minutes. The White House says President Joe Biden has been briefed on the Tulsa shooting, adding that the administration has offered support to local officials. This is Randy Bernardino reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Texas town of Uvalde mourned the death of a teacher gunned down when a crazed shooter opened fire on an elementary school. Family and friends buried Linda Garcia Wednesday. She was the one of the 2 teachers killed in the massacre last week that also left 19 children dead. 2 days later, Garcia's husband died of a heart attack, leaving their children orphaned. They are survived by 2 daughters. The first of the children's funerals was held Tuesday.
Hurricane Agatha has unleashed its wrath on Mexico. Since hitting land on Monday, the storm has claimed at least 11 lives and more than 30 people are missing. Agatha triggered heavy rains and deadly flooding and landslides. The Category 2 storm swept through Mexico's Oaxaca state and was the first Pacific hurricane of the season. The country is regularly battered by storms on its Pacific and Atlantic coasts between May and November.
In flood-ravaged Brazil, rescue teams continue their search for missing people. Heavy rain in the country's northeast triggered flooding and landslides. The torrential rain has resulted in at least 106 deaths. People in the village of Villa dos Milagres fear that the ground in the area may give way, causing another disaster. President Jair Bolsonaro surveyed the damage from a helicopter. He said on Twitter it was too dangerous to land because the ground is too unstable.
At least 4 people have been killed and 14 injured after 2 earthquakes rattled the ground in southwestern China. This dramatic footage shows the power of the shaker. It was shot in a classroom. Children hid under desks, then they rushed for the exits. The 6.1 magnitude quake hit a sparsely populated area in Sichuan province. 3 minutes later, a second quake measuring 4.5 hit the region. Authorities say there have been no reports of structures collapsing.
Another call from the Secretary General of the United Nations to end the war in Ukraine. Antonio Guterres says the Russia-Ukraine conflict has disrupted global food and energy markets.
Specifically with respect to the food crisis, We need quick and decisive action to ensure a steady flow of food and energy in open markets by lifting export restrictions, allocating surpluses and reserves to vulnerable populations, and addressing food price increases to calm market volatility.
So welcome to this press conference, and I am delighted to welcome the UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres to Stockholm.
Guterres adds the war underscores the need for the world to rely on renewable energy sources and not fossil fuels.
So it's time to learn the lesson. If we do not want again to be in the same situation we are today, we need to make a clear bet. Massive investment in renewable energy and clear understanding that the dependence on fossil fuels is a suicidal one.
Don't expect an early end to the war in Ukraine. The conflict passed the 100-day mark this week, and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says there are no signs Russia will end its invasion.
As best we can assess right now, we are still looking at many months of conflict. Again, that could be over tomorrow if Russia chose to end the aggression. We don't see any signs of that right now.
Blinken adds that Ukraine has promised not to use the long-range missiles it has received from the U.S. to strike inside of Russia.
Russia accused the U.S. of seeking to prolong the war in Ukraine after President Joe Biden said he would supply Kyiv with new long-range missiles. The long-range missiles can help Ukrainian troops strike Russian forces more precisely from a longer distance. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the U.S. was intentionally adding fuel to the fire with the weapon deliveries. Peskov added that such supplies do not contribute to the Ukrainian leadership's willingness to resume peace negotiations. Biden's boosting Ukrainian forces came after Russian troops edged closer to taking a key city in Ukraine. The industrial hub of Severodonetsk became a key target for Moscow, with the local governor saying 80% of the city is now under Russian control. Meanwhile, the German government also promised to send an air defense system to Ukraine. Chancellor Olaf Scholz told MPs that the Iris-T system was the most modern Germany possessed and would enable Ukraine to defend an entire city against Russian air attacks. This move made Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov lash out against weapon deliveries, who said Biden's announcement increased the risk of a third country being dragged into the conflict.
14 miners remain trapped underground following an explosion in a coal mine in Colombia. The blast happened Monday when a mixture of methane and coal dust ignited. One miner who made it out has died. The main entrance to the mine has collapsed, making it difficult to reach the rest of the miners. Right now, rescue teams are trying to ventilate the mine to ensure there is enough oxygen. It's expected it will take several days to reach the missing miners. The cause of the blast is still unknown.
Health agency confirms community spread of monkeypox in England. WHO says COVID in North Korea is likely getting worse, not better. And United Airlines donates flights to ship infant formula from the UK to the US. These and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
This
namang episode ng kwentuhan kung saan hindi ako kung hindi kayo ang bida. 4 years old pa lang siya ay meron na siyang ganyang kondisyon. Kaya naman, it became her life's mission to be an advocate for this disease. Makikitambike tayo sa isang grupo ng mga mahihilig sa motorsiklo. Pero merong mga espesyal na grupo na bukod sa distressing, sightseeing at bonding moments ang hinahanap, kasama din sa kanilang pit stop ang pamimigay ng tulong along the way. So isa sa nakita ko online na gumawa ng ingay sa larangan ng hydroponics ay isang 21-year-old na binata. Ang hydroponic gardening o ang method na pagpapalaki ng halaman na hindi kailangan ng lupa. Hindi ko na i-explain. Panoorin nyo na lang at tanungin ang inyong sarili. Kung kayo ang kaibigang nasa kalagayan niya, tutugon ba kayo for his cry for help? I'm your host, Aga Mula, at ito ang Bida Kayo kay Aga.
You're still watching Mata ng Agila International. Carrying Union flags and picnic bags, huge crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace on a sunny morning, hoping to catch sight of Queen Elizabeth II at the start of her Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Let's find out how the celebrations are going. Reporting straight from London, let's hear from Ashley Espiritu.
I'm here in London witnessing the Platinum Jubilee festivities to mark Queen Elizabeth II's record-breaking 70 years on the throne. This is a series of spectacular events taking place in central London and across the UK during the 4-day bank holiday weekend from Thursday 2nd to Sunday 5th of June. The celebrations kicked off with Trooping the Colour, where more than 1,200 officers and soldiers put on a display of military pageantry on a horse guard parade, together with hundreds of army musicians and around 240 horses. Royal Gun Salute was fired during the parade. An impressive fly-past and aerial display was watched by the Queen and senior royals from the balcony of Buckingham Palace. On the Mao Red paved avenue leading to Buckingham Palace, royal enthusiasts from far and wide have been camping out despite torrential downpours. Approaching sunset today, the Queen was to light a commemorative beacon at Windsor Castle, west of London. It will be one of more than 3,000 lit across the UK and its overseas territories. The first week of June has been chosen for the Platinum Jubilee weekend, just like the Queen's Golden and Diamond Jubilees, with the summer month offering a better chance of good weather. In a message of the Jubilee, the Queen gave thanks to all involved in organising activities from local to national levels in Britain and across the 54-nation Commonwealth. While the spectacular events include a concert at Buckingham Palace to be performed by many big artists like Elton John, Alicia Keys and Andrea Bocelli in front of 22,000 people, including royals and key workers. Also, a giant public parade through central London earlier Sunday will tell the story of the Queen's reign, featuring military staff, dancers, puppets of corgis, and a performance by Ed Sheeran. From London, United Kingdom, this is Ashley Espiritu reporting for Mata ng Agila, international, trusted, connected, on point.
Australia will provide Samoa with a new Coast Guard patrol boat. Foreign Minister Penny Wong vowed this while on a visit to the Pacific Island nation as she looked to reset ties and counter growing Chinese influence. After meeting Samoan Prime Minister Fiami Naomi Mataafa, Wong said the new Guardian-class vessel will replace Samoa's previous boat. The 40-meter Nafanwa II hit a reef last August, suffering irreparable damage. Thus, Mataafa confirmed or welcomed Australia's generous offer of a boat replacement.
I think it's very generous on the part of the Australian government and people that they are gifting us yet another patrol boat, despite the unfortunate circumstances of our last boat. And I hope that the lessons learned from that unfortunate occurrence will help us ensure that we can keep these assets that are generously gifted by our partners, and especially in a very critical area of our maritime security.
We want to be a partner of choice. We want to demonstrate to you.
Wang is expected to visit Tonga later this week, just as China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi wraps up a 10-day island hopping tour of the Pacific for Beijing's security deal. Mataaffang, on the other hand, said Samoa will oppose a regional pact with China until the Pacific region discussed the matter collectively.
The UK Health Security Agency, or UKHSA, announced that monkeypox appears to be spreading from person to person in England. The health agency said the current outbreak is the first time that the virus has been passed from person to person, where travel links to an endemic country have not been identified. 132 monkeypox cases were reported in London. The health agency identified that the cases are linked to gay bars, saunas, and the use of dating apps in Britain and abroad. Kevin Fenton, London's regional director for public health, stressed that monkeypox can affect anyone, but many of the most recent diagnoses are the gay, bisexual, or other men having sex with men community, many of whom live in or have links to London. Monkeypox usually causes flu-like symptoms and pus-filled skin lesions that usually resolve on their own within weeks, but can also kill a small fraction of those infected. UK health authorities are offering Bavarian Nordic's vaccine, Imvanex, to contacts of confirmed or suspected cases. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization confirmed it had so far received reports of more than 550 confirmed cases of the viral disease from 30 countries outside of Africa.
Contrary to North Korea's reports of progress, the World Health Organization believes the country's COVID-19 crisis is deepening. Pyongyang, which announced its first ever coronavirus cases on May 12, said last week that its COVID-19 outbreak had been brought under control. However, WHO Emergencies Director Michael Ryan questions the claim. Ryan nonetheless says the UN Health Agency is not in a position to make an adequate risk assessment of the situation because it is very difficult to provide a proper analysis to the world when they don't have access to the necessary data. Meanwhile, Maria van Kerkhove, WHO's lead on COVID-19, resonates with Ryan's sentiments, saying Pyongyang reported many recoveries, but there is only a little information about it. The state-run Korean Central News Agency, or KCNA, reported some 96,600 fever cases in 24 hours, for a total of 3.8 million cases since late April. With only 69 fatalities, no new deaths were announced. KCNA also reported that more than 95% of the country's COVID cases had recovered. Now, Ryan stresses the importance of reining in the outbreak, saying WHO continues to offer COVID vaccine jabs for Pyongyang.
More infant formula is en route to American homes after the Biden administration has partnered with a major airline to fly in the third batch of much-needed baby supplements. Rosel Feria has the details.
The third Operation Fly Formula flight for the first shipment of Kendamil infant formula entering the United States has been arranged. In a statement, the White House says United Airlines has agreed to transport Kendamil formula free of charge from Heathrow Airport in London to multiple airports across the country over a 3-week period. These are the first Operation Formula flight to be donated by an airline carrier. These flights will contain over 300,000 pounds, or approximately 3.7 million 8-ounce bottle equivalents of Kendamil infant formula. They will begin shipping on June 9. These flights will contain approximately 3.2 million 8-ounce bottle equivalents of Kendamil Classic Stage 1 and 540,000 8-ounce bottle equivalents of Kendamil Organic. The Kendamil formula available through Operation Fly Formula will be distributed and available for purchase at selected U.S. retailers nationwide as well as online. The first shipment, which includes Kendamil Classic and Kendamil Organic formula, will be available at Target stores across the country in the coming weeks. Rosel Feria, Mata ng Agila International, Washington, D.C. Trusted, connected, on point.
The United States is set to implement modernized building codes to help communities become more resilient to extreme weather conditions. Jeff Sanidad reports.
The Biden-Harris administration announces a national initiative to advance building codes. In a statement, the White House says the initiative aims to help state, local, tribal, and territorial governments adopt the most modern building standards that make more communities more resilient to hurricanes, flooding, wildfire, and other extreme weather events intensified by climate change. The most current code means more smart design and construction methods that save lives, reduce property damage, and lower utility bills. By building roofs that can withstand hurricane winds using construction materials resistant to flood damage, and installing insulation that keeps heating and cooling costs low. Damage brought about by extreme weather events will be dramatically reduced, thus helping underserved communities who suffer the most. The White House says these modernized energy codes can save households an average of $162 each year on utility bills, which is especially significant in reducing energy burden for low-income households. 2 out of 3 communities in the United States have not adopted the latest building codes. This means these communities are vulnerable to climate impacts and higher energy costs. Jeff Sanidad, Mata ng Agila International, Washington, D.C. Trusted, connected, on point.
Another measure by Mexico to curb smoking. The Mexican government has banned the sale of electronic cigarettes and other vaping devices. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador says it is a lie to claim that e-cigarettes are a safe alternative to inhaling tobacco smoke. He says the vapors are harmful to health. As he signed the new law, Lopez Obrador showed a pink vaping device to illustrate how the products are intended to appeal to young people. Mexico prohibited the import and export of vaping devices and cartridges in October, but companies have continued to sell their inventory. The World Health Organization considers electronic cigarettes to be harmful to health and has called for tight regulation to stop young people in particular from using them.
Next on Mata ng Agila International. Elon Musk puts an end to remote work at Tesla. A nearly priceless Rolex to be auctioned off at Christie's. And Depp wins out in bitter herd defamation trial. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
you! Kumaon ka na sa nakakahiya ka.
Bakit ba? Mag-enjoy pa ako eh.
Enjoy na enjoy ka. Hindi pa tayo nagbabayad ng entrance.
Superhero ka ba? Oo, kinukutuban kasi ako. Meron kayong masamang gagawin.
Yes! Ito!
Ano?
Tesla boss Elon Musk has declared that working remotely is no longer acceptable and finally ordered his staff to return to the office full-time. The auto tech's new policy was shared in emails that were leaked to social media. When asked about the policy, Musk said on Twitter that people who are unwilling to abide by the new rules can pretend to work somewhere else. According to one of the emails, Musk said everyone at Tesla is required to spend a minimum of 40 hours in the office per week. And if a staff doesn't show up, Tesla will assume that they have resigned. The leaked emails mentioned that staff should report to work at one of the company's main offices, not a remote branch office unrelated to job duties. Musk said that he would personally review any requests for exemptions from the policy. In one of the emails shared on social media, he said Tesla has and will create and actually manufacture the most exciting and meaningful products of any company on Earth, and this will not happen by phoning it in. As of this time, Tesla has not officially responded to any request for comment on the leaked messages.
A humanoid robot has been used to help grow human tendon tissue as part of research into tissue grafts. Scientists from the University of Oxford teamed up with engineers from Switzerland and Germany to grow engineered tissues on a robotic shoulder joint. The team started to modify an open-source robot by adding a bioreactor and a way to attach the new tissue as it grew. Once these were in place, specific areas were flooded with nutrients to stimulate growth. The research findings could help improve the production and quality of tissue grafts for patients, as well as support the development of more advanced and realistic humanoid robots. Developed by Raphael Hostetler, the robotic technology used in the experiments is aimed to build bio-inspired humanoid robotic bodies.
Lionel Messi stole the show as Copa America holders Argentina powered to a 3-0 win against European champions Italy in the Finalissima at the iconic Wembley Stadium. Inspired by the fearless Messi, Argentina raced into a 2-goal lead in the first half of the football match thanks to strikes from Lautaro Martinez and Angel Di Maria. Paulo Dybala capped Argentina's rout, but after a disappointing season with Paris Saint-Germain, his sky-high standards, it was the sight of Messi back to his imperious best that took the spotlight. It was another memorable moment for Argentina, who have qualified for this year's World Cup as they extend the golden afterglow from the victory over Brazil that ended their 28-year wait to win the Copa America in 2021.
George Ferocious Cambosos has risen from humble beginnings to the precipice of being crowned undisputed lightweight champion of the world. But all that could change this Sunday in Melbourne if he wins his showdown against American Devin Haney with the WBA, IBF, WBO, and WBC belts all in the line. Haney is the current WBC lightweight title holder who is also undefeated in 27 fights. After an amateur career spanning more than 100 fights, Cambosos successfully moved up to the professional ranks and now boasts 20 wins with a 0-loss record and 10 knockouts. With more than 50,000 people expected to pack Melbourne's Marvel Stadium, Cambosos is on the brink of his chief boxing achievement of becoming one of Australia's greatest boxers.
A U.S. jury found both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard liable for defamation, but sided more strongly with the Pirates of the Caribbean star. The verdict capped a bitterly fought 6-week trial riding on lurid claims and counterclaims between the Hollywood celebrities. The 7-member jury in Virginia awarded the 58-year-old actor $15 million in damages after finding that a 2018 article penned by Heard on her experience of sexual violence was defamatory to Depp. Judge Penny Azcarate reduced the award to $10.35 million to comply with the state law. Heard, whose eyes were downcast throughout, listened impassively as the verdict was read out in Fairfax Court and later declared she was heartbroken and disappointed beyond words by the outcome. The jury partly ruled in her favor, awarding her $2 million in damages for her defamation countersuit against Depp. Depp, who was following the proceedings from the United Kingdom, meanwhile posted on Instagram that the jury gave me my life back.
As against Amber Heard, we, the jury, award compensatory damages in the amount of $10 million. As against Amber Heard, we, the jury, award punitive damages in the amount of $5 million. As against John C. Depp II, we, the jury, award compensatory damages in the amount of $2 million. As against John C. Depp II, we, the jury, award punitive damages in the amount of $0.
In an op-ed for the Washington Post, Heard had described herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. And although she did not name Depp in the piece, he sued her for implying he was an abuser, seeking $50 million in damages. The 36-year-old Heard, who had a starring role in Aquaman, countersued for $100 million, saying she was defamed by statements made by Depp's lawyer, Adam Waldman, who told the Daily Mail that her abuse claims were a hoax. Outside the courthouse, Depp's fans celebrated the jury's decision. But a lone Amber Heard fan said she came to support the actress as she felt the case is really important when it comes to believing women.
10-time Grammy Award winner Justin Timberlake said bye to his music catalog. The former NSYNC member recently sold the entire music catalog of his 20-year career to the London-based firm Hypnosis Song Management. The reported $100 million purchase includes all copyrights on tracks Timberlake has written or co-written, including any music the Suit Thai singer released in association with movies, television, streaming, cover music, or performances. The management company now holds the reins of Timberlake's chart-topping hits like Cry Me a River and Mirrors. The pop superstar joins the ranks of other entertainers like Shakira, Stevie Nicks, Bob Dylan, and Neil Young, who have all recently sold the rights to their music.
French fearless tightrope walker Nathan Paulin claimed a new world record as he completed a 2,200-meter-long trip to Mont Saint-Michel along a wire suspended between a crane and the famous abbey on the tidal island. His entourage said Paulin, aged 28, let himself down on the wire just meters before the finish for safety reasons.
Bon, maintenant, je suis vraiment dans l'euphorie de l'arrivée, donc je suis hyper heureux, mais c'est marrant parce que c'était par moments beaucoup plus dur que ce que j'avais imaginé, et par moments ça déroulait et c'était facile, donc c'est vraiment un condensé, c'est une expérience très intense. En 2 heures, j'ai vécu plein d'émotions et c'est toujours le cas, et là, je suis juste hyper heureux d'être maintenant sur le Mont Saint-Michel et d'avoir fait ce record, en fait.
Paulin started his intense and nerve-wracking walk at an elevation of around 100 meters in the late afternoon, secured to a safety line. It took the fearless tightrope walker 2 hours to inch his way barefoot along the 2-centimeter wide slack line. Paulin's next dream is to walk between the Eiffel and Montparnasse Towers, a 2.7-kilometer fearless feat.
When he was a prisoner of war during World War II, Royal Air Force Lieutenant General Gerald Imison was given the opportunity by Rolex to order a wristwatch through the Red Cross. The historical watch ended up being an instrumental tool in planning the Great Escape in 1944. Now, Imison's Rolex Reference 35-25 Monoblocco watch is up for sale at Christie's, with the auction house saying the watch's unique history makes it nearly priceless.
It's one of the few watches that the market really didn't know existed. Yeah, this is the first being seen, whether it be on social media or media outlets. This example here is known. This is produced in 175 examples. Can be adjusted accordingly as you travel by pressing this button that will chime the hours, the quarters, and the minutes so that you're aware of the time.
Produced for only about 6 years, from 1939 to 1945, Reference 35-25 is the first Rolex chronograph fitted in a water-resistant oyster case.
Let's explore the past with facts about this day in history. In 1938, the character of Superman debuted in the Action Comic issue #1. Sold for 10 cents back then, it is widely considered to be both the beginning of the superhero genre and the most valuable comic book in the world. In 1953, following the death of her father, Queen Elizabeth II was formally crowned the Queen of England. Hundreds of millions listened on the radio and for the first time watched the ceremony on live television. After the coronation in Westminster Abbey, millions of rain-drenched spectators cheered the 27-year-old Queen and her husband, the 30-year-old Duke of Edinburgh, as they passed along a 5-mile procession route in a gilded horse-drawn carriage. And in 1966, Surveyor 1 became the first U.S. space probe to have a soft landing on the moon. But the Soviet Union came first when Luna 9 had a successful soft landing on February the 3rd of that same year.
Now, before we end tonight's broadcast, of course, a quote, this time from actor Johnny Depp. He said, "One day, the people that did not believe in you will tell everyone how they met you."
I think I'd like that. I'd like people to be telling everyone how they've met
How they
me.
met you. It's kind of sad. It's true what they say. The journey towards the top is sad because you don't have a lot of people joining
that's
you.
true.
Well, it's not the goal, but it's a good feeling after. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates in our social media channels. I am CJ Hirro.
And I am Ricci, Alagao, Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.